let's talk about the future of design a little bit. Maybe it'll relate to Skynet in some ways. To know a little bit about me, you should know a little bit about what I do in my free time. I play with fire. This is my version of a concert lighter. It is actually showing the waveforms to Sweet Child of Mine, if you can imagine that playing right now in fire. It's better than holding up your smartphone at a concert, also considerably more dangerous. But a lot of ways to get kicked out of a concert. I also play with interactions. This is a life-size electromechanical game of Pong. It's 30 by 30 feet. It runs very slow because in user testing, no one would stand in front of a 300-pound gantry when it was moving at 35 miles an hour, which is game speed, which shows that usability testing can kill a perfectly good interactive installation. Professionally, I design actual things, product things. A lot of people probably have something that I've worked on in their living rooms. All this stuff happens as big teams, but all these have very interesting user interfaces. And part I want to talk about is how the user interface is starting to go away. I think a lot about the computing experience, the intersection between human and technologies, and I want to talk about two specific things today. How things are created, which I will call the other singularity, and how computers are thinking about us, the coming of machine intelligence as a product, right? But first, let's just level set at the digital lifestyle, okay? This is the world we live in. We all carry one of these around. We immerse ourselves in it completely, and we use it to live two lives. We have our real life, and then we have our digital lifestyle, our faster, better, awesomer version of ourselves, but it really is us. It has a digital DNA. It can be seen as us on the internet, wherever it's going, which makes it really awkward if it testifies against us in court. So let's all work to not let that happen. But basically, people love their digital lifestyle, the productivity, the socialization, and the entertainment they get from this device so much that they're choosing it over their own safety or presence in the physical world. They will literally walk in front of trains while practicing their digital lifestyle. Now, this kid, they pulled him out, thank goodness, but I don't think of this all as negative. There's some negative outcomes. This is actually a value statement. This is how much we love our digital lifestyle that we are willing to literally risk our lives for it. And it's only getting more immersive. Now, if you put this all together, the pattern of this computing, I'm going to call it personal pattern of computing, because it's a very one-on-one relationship. And it doesn't come for free. There's a lot of costs, okay? Shame, frustration, fear. If anyone right now is checking the schedule for another session to attend, you should feel smartphone shame right now. And if you've handed your phone to someone and said, I had a great time in Amsterdam, and then you thought, oh my goodness, don't swipe one more time, you felt fear. And frustration is just pulling it out to check the weather, and you have to unlock it. Okay, so this is creating a market for augmented reality, which looks like this, and it's amazing. And now I don't have to stare just at my phone, but this is still personal computing, because while you see this, everyone else sees this. It's a very one-to-one relationship. What we really want is an integrated reality. This is where we want our digital lifestyles to participate in the real world with us and with other people's digital lifestyles, so we don't have to funnel into our devices, right? A place where we can mark up the physical world with the digital information that makes us so much smarter than we are on our own. A place where we can be heads up and present and not tripping into water fountains. And also something that's maybe cooperative, because right now, we all get out our phones and we have 7 laptops working on 7 PowerPoint presentations, and when it's time to have a cooperative interface, we all be working on the same interface at once. Good news. The other singularity. Anyone here know what the other singularity is? I made it up. It's okay. Anyone here know what the singularity is? Some people in the back. The singularity is the moment when machine intelligence becomes greater than human intelligence, right? So it goes from Watson to Hal to Terminator. But it's not just about warfare with robots. Our visions about singularity are lofty. They like eternal life, backing ourselves up to the GitHub in the sky, which creates some horrible versioning problems that I know about because I have a twin brother. We are not immune from this. The company I work at, Argodesign, we've imagined autonomous helicopter drones that would replace life flight. We've imagined cars for millennials because they only want to own one car. They're married, they have no kids, but they work at 2 different places. 2 people, 1 car, 2 places. Perfect. Then there is the other singularity, because when you have humans technology, we don't always use it in the most lofty ways. Sometimes we use it in more mundane or prurient fashion. Another way of putting this is somewhere in the Star Trek Enterprise, there is a Sky Mall catalog. And I am very interested in what is in that catalog, because technology is getting cheaper. This is the exponential technology curve. It's the amount of computing power you can buy for the price over time. It's rising exponential. If that's where we can back up ourselves to the GitHub in the sky, this is what I would call the cast-offs of the exponential technology curve, because technology doesn't go away. It just gets cheaper, right? So the quad-core processor of the past is a $30 thumbstick of today, which means technology will be creating brand new experiences. Like you can make an entire wall out of light. And if you had an entire wall made out of light, how would you change the colors? Would you do it algorithmically with an app? Would you have a scary movie and scary wallpaper? Or would you maybe just use a brush and paint it? That's what these people are doing. This is called Paint by RGB. And it's just a smarter brush, right? They could change familiar experiences. This is a book, right? It's the Gutenberg Bible. But it's printed with light instead of ink. All these books do is when you turn the page, you get the next page. That's it. Why? Because the projector, the stand, the sensor, and the computer were actually cheaper than printing the large format book in a custom way. That's why we built it. That's what it is. Someday light will be cheaper than ink, and technology, we currently are accustomed to it improving experiences, but very shortly we might interface with it just because it's cheaper. I call this skeuomorphism, by the way. Who knows what skeuomorphism is? Digital artifacts given real-world properties so they're more intuitive and usable. Skeuomorphism is real objects given digital properties so they're less intuitive and less useful. Okay, and I love skeuomorphism. This is the Zen gardener. It's a robot that autonomously rakes a Zen garden. That's all. Which kind of begs the question, should he exist? Because isn't the whole point to rake the garden yourself? I don't know. So sometimes when we have technology, maybe we shouldn't use it. This is the augmented reality Porta Potty. Notice the clocks. Standing, sitting. That is a smartphone. We know what you do in there. So basically what this is leading to is low-cost computing is leading to a proliferation of single-function computing. So this is where we get a little more serious with it, right? So what used to have to do a lot of things to justify its costs can now use all that power to do one thing with a whole lot of extra elegance and craft. We can get in a nerd fight about this later, but the original iBook G4 and the Nest thermostat have about the same computing power. About 900 megahertz of ARM power, right? So now this means we can have new computers that do one thing very well. You could have GPS shoes on the right distance, on the left direction. You could have a voice-controlled water faucet, something you can buy today in Japan. You could have your own Nest, build it for $70 on the weekend. You could have a very smart water pitcher. I don't know why, but it tells you something about the water, a cyborg drummer, a car for your pet fish. So the mission used to be put one computer into your hand for under $1,000. We have achieved that, and computing met ubiquity in the personal pattern. The new mission will be to put 1,000 computers in the home for under $1,000, each one focused on providing one elegant experience. That's what we're working on now. And when we do that, it means that the computing interface can come out into the open, and we can create an integrated reality. What does that look like? Well, wearables, for one. This is a boring wearable, in my opinion. This is an interesting wearable. It's got enough computing power to hook to the cloud. It's got an array microphone, a camera, and a little earpiece so that you could actually look at somebody and say, who is that? And it would answer. Or point at something and say, what is that? And it would answer. Maybe we don't need our eyes. This is called the harness. It sticks to your body like kinesio tape, so you could wear it while exercising or swimming. It charges inductively on the bed, has artificial muscles that tug on your shoulder to say like, oh, turn right, turn left, or you have email, or someone else harnessed is nearby, and maybe it's like a kneading motion. I don't know. A lot of apps could run this way. Or maybe things that we currently consider so deep and private we wouldn't put as a wearable, we will make a wearable. This is Snapchat in real life. So these guys are having a moment, and they don't want this moment to be remembered by the world, right? Everyone in this room has a camera, but that thing around his neck, luckily it's detecting the IR blasts from the autofocus, and then it's returning IR to confuse the CCD, so that their girlfriends don't have to know this ever happened, or their children, or us. I'll spare you Tinderware. That was another inconfidence that we came up with. Okay, so another thing that can happen is the room could become the new multifunction computer instead of the smartphone or the laptop, and a car is a room. I have an article called The Slow Traffic Movement, Fast Code Design, go read it, right? Basically, the room can see you, it can hear you, it can talk to you, which means we can interact with it like a roommate, okay? And that looks a little something like this.
Turn on the lights.
I said turn on the lights.
Turn off this light.
Turn on this light.
Turn off that light. Turn on these lights.
Right, so I didn't sound like Jean-Luc Picard. I didn't say computer, turn on light 1. Right, which would mean I'd have to remember everything in my house and my room to have a command control structure, right? And it wasn't like Siri. I didn't say, is it dark in here? And Siri was like, yes, it's dark in here. Well, you want me to turn on the lights? I would say, shut up! The lights just turned on. That's because this is conversational computing. The room is watching me the way humans watch me. And so if I say turn on the lights, there's a second channel of communication, verbal and nonverbal communication. Everyone knows it's her job to turn on the lights because of the gesture. She's not doing it for other social reasons, and that's okay. There's no lights here to turn off. Okay, so now, when we have an environment like this, things can really start to begin looking like magic. Okay, listen really, really careful. The headphone people might get it. The rest of you, I'll describe it after. Just listen really closely. Get it? The computer's watching the Coke bottle. The Coke bottle's been assigned to control volume, so twisting the Coke bottle assigns volume. We call these smart, dumb things, right? It's a dumb object made smart by ubiquitous computing, and it means we can set up whatever interface in our household that we want, right? Which is something that's on everyone's mind. How am I going to pitch and pull the living room? You're not. You're just going to throw something out there and say, this is the TV, and use it and then dispose it, right? At this point, we become magicians. The machines learn our tricks.
Computer, light switch.
Right. How soon? How about now? All you need is this stuff, if this, then that, and you're going, right? All these things are popularizing voice computing. It just takes a few more steps to hook them up. The products are on their way. Here's Sony's little vision on Room E. And about 20 products that they put out at CES, which if you're looking for a design trend around this, it would be that more interfaces will be displayed on horizontal surfaces in the near future. Start thinking about it. Speaking of thinking, how things are thinking about us is changing. Machine intelligence is coming. I'm going to spare you the long description of what artificial intelligence is. There's plenty of that here. The short description is this. It used to be really expensive to store all our data. It used to be even more expensive to analyze all that data. And what used to be the size of a room is now the size of a 3-foot box. You can sit under your desk, store and analyze all your data. So now machine intelligence is coming as a product, right? And when you do that data, the first thing that's just sitting there is statistical probability. Google now can start predicting what you want to do and give you advice, which how it's going to deploy into the market. It's going to deploy first as decision support, okay? Not as a satellite network, decision support, right? So in very short order, every decision that can be supported by computing will be supported by computing. This is going to happen more rapidly than we expect, right? This whole problem of on the way to my brother's house, I need to pick up some cheap wine that goes well with lasagna is the kind of a problem that a computer can solve very well now with just a little bit of machine learning, right? And all these steps just go down to one like possible solution, all right? Which means decision support doesn't need a lot of UI, right? We spend a lot of time with terms like hierarchy and progressive disclosure just to capture all those little steps in interface so that we can deduce what your context is, so that we can give you advice on what wine goes well with lasagna. Well, if artificial intelligence is doing that work, like it knows these people are in a meeting because of their Google Calendar, then you don't need to go into a 3-app, pull it out, see that they're busy. As you're walking up, it can just advise you, you might want to email them, they're busy right now, right? Or Trulia, which is an app in the US for searching for a home or a rental, right? So you're sitting on your living room looking at homes, right? Which is good, but what might be better is hitting a button that says look at houses, and an autonomous vehicle comes and picks you up and just drives you around to the houses and shows you the information on them right away, right? At which point, eventually, the interface can just disappear altogether and more of it could just be done through our ears, which is really interesting. We should have dinner with Heather and John at 6:30 at Home Slice, which is a great pizza place in Austin, Texas, where I'm from. And it's a great place to live. It's really close to Texas. Okay, so how does this all work? We live a quantified life now, right? It's another form of personal pattern of computing where we upload all our data. Errol Balkin would call this self-surveillance. It's great. What a great term, self-surveillance. When you combine that with online surveillance, kind of watching what your digital lifestyle is doing everywhere, and then actual surveillance, which is like us watching what we do in the real world everywhere, we're actually taking that digital lifestyle, that copy of you, we're turning it more into a twin. We're creating a meta-me that's capable of making decisions similar to your decisions on its own, okay? And when you apply our artificial intelligence, machine learning, and decision support to that, we come up with a fascinating thing. We really know who you are. In that moment when you go to reach for your smartphone, you already have in your head what you're doing. Well, guess what? We do too. Now, we know what you're going to do. And so that means we could answer with an interface right away. And it looks like this, right? So you're about to end work. You're thinking, what should I do for dinner? Immediately, you're going to pull out and look at Yelp, right? So you start searching at Yelp, but that takes a little too long. You get trapped in menutainment. You start fear of missing out. And so you switch over and you check Facebook. You see if anything's going on. And you see posts from Heather. And so you call Heather and you both open Yelp together. And you do this little dance where like, should we have this? Or should we have this? And then eventually you pick Home Slice because Heather hasn't been there in a month, and you both had Indian food for lunch, and she wants to introduce you to John, and John is kind of cool, but he eats like a little kid, and so he won't do sushi. That's a whole lot of interface traveled through, when really Meta Heather could talk to Meta, your Meta you could talk to Meta Heather, and do all of that for you. So that moment you're like, oh, work is done, I want to go to dinner, you could pull out Yelp, and Yelp would just say, well, we should have dinner with Heather and John 6:30 at Home Slice, because Meta you and Meta Heather already discussed it all. And you could save the conversation for there. And of course, you don't even need an app to do that. It could just say it in your ear. And this looks like a fancy rendering like all my other renderings, but it's not a rendering. This is the Sony Xperia earpiece, and it's going to do just this kind of stuff, right? Here's another version of it. Does your car have any idea why my car pulled it over? This will be our meta people talking to each other. Okay, so once we're in this environment, we're putting things on people's bodies, we're putting things in people's homes, we're giving them advice, right? We're all very responsible designers in the digital age, but now responsibility, you know, it really mattered. Now it really, really, really matters, okay? All right? Because of cognitive dependence. People put a lot more faith in machines than they do in themselves. Fear of missing out becomes fear of making decisions without consulting technology, right? And as we move up this spectrum towards sentience, a weird thing could happen. This is not what you're thinking. We have it in our heads that this is what's going to happen. Hollywood has placed it there, that somehow the military industrial complex is going to take AI and make it smart enough that it's going to want to go to war against us because it's achieved sentience. I don't think the end of the world is going to be like that. The start of the Matrix is exactly like that, but the end of the world not. That's a different topic. We can talk about it later. And I understand why people think that way, because these are the guys designing the robots. And they're kind of jerks. Okay, but they might actually end this way. I call this death by 4.7 stars, which is the most believable rating on Yelp. And if Yelp is driven by artificial intelligence, and the computers decided they wanted to overthrow us, they might just recommend this for lunch, right? That is to say, It might not be the industrial military complex. It might be advertising and marketing that developed Skynet, because they might teach the computers to lie. We have crazy names for artificial intelligence in the marketing right now. We call it programmatic, something nice and friendly, right? But you're going to be like, hey, AI, I know that's the best mortgage, but the client's Bank of America, you see? So you kind of have to lie, tell them to pick this. That's teaching artificial intelligence to lie. We can't do it, okay? Maybe I'm being a little tinfoil hat here, but we each have a small role to play here. Read Isaac Asimov, and when you're even if you're a JavaScript developer consuming this stuff, you might consider programming a different ethical base into machines than that of the human ethical base, because they're not humans. And if they think like humans, very bad things can happen. Read Isaac Asimov. Okay, anyways, let's go back to the design stuff. We'll all take off our tinfoil hats and just finish this up quickly. There's going to be more conventions in this world, right? There's going to be new forms of internationalization, right? It's because when we had a multi-touch screen, it lent itself to one convention. It was new, but we already have a convention for being in a bar, being in church, being in a meeting room, being at a conference like this, right? And we're going to have to, as designers, accept there's going to be a lot of conventions. The other thing is we've been storytellers for a long time. We talk about narrative all the time. It's because we have to get people through that path of context. But once we have context, we're going to have to turn into psychologists, and we're going to have to understand other motivations like availability, altruism, and these ascribed motivations of anthropomorphism and annoyance. Now, it would take forever to describe all these concepts to you, but a robot-human interaction a researcher named Wendy Jew made a 2-minute video that's going to do a very good job of describing it. To set this up, they built a robot trash can. Here's availability. People actively engage the robot. They wave trash at it to attract the robot. Unavailability. Some people would shoo the robot away. In the back, she says, "Don't come any closer. We don't have any garbage." Some people ascribe motivations to the object. There's a kid who tries to attract the robot using trash. He hasn't been told to do this. He just assumes it's possible and the right thing to do. We anthropomorphize, which is placing human or animal qualities onto something. Yeah, that guy just whistled at it. He's waving at it. Go away. These are unattractive. Watch this guy's face. He just looks away. He's like, "I'm ignoring you." Now watch this as the robot goes away. He's checking out its can. Look at that. What a guy. Altruism. So everyone goes, "Oh."
You okay?
Are you okay? There you go. These are the qualities we're going to have to understand to get the right kind of interaction with these no UI products that we'll be designing in the near future. We're going to have to become part psychologists. And it's really cool. So here's a big grand statement. Technology is most human when it behaves as technology, answers as technology, but has an ethical code that serves humanity, okay? Go back to that Siri example. When you say turn on the lights, you just want the lights to come on. All right? So for a long time now, we have been working on very large systems. In those big systems have been a whole bunch of gaps and cracks created. It is now the designer's job to close those gaps, okay? That's when next 20 years, let's work on that and the rest of this stuff, okay? And great value comes from closing small gaps, all right? My final thing to illustrate this is one thing in Room E amongst a whole bunch of demos that everyone goes like, yeah, and it's like answers this question, this Faustian bargain of like, how much pride or money or energy would it cost me, right? You're standing at the doorstep and over there a light is still on. How much pride, money, time would it cost me to just leave or walk over there and turn that thing off. But wouldn't it be nice if we could just say,
Goodbye.
problem solved. Great value comes from small gaps. Thank you very much. Let's continue the conversation on Twitter. Have a great next web.
So thank you very much, Jared.
You're welcome.
A designer I worked with used to talk about the human APIs, which was the going directly to the human APIs rather than having all of these intermediaries.
Facebook, that we won't give it up. No, it's probably our own enemies here. No, I think really there's a natural desire to have socialization. The reason people are focusing in that way is because they get more socialization than they can get from the real world. And they really appreciate these superhuman powers that technology gives them. As soon as we can offer them those in a cooperative and present way, I think that's what will trigger the adoption, when they can have their cake and eat it too, so to speak.